Welcome to Running in the 70s, where we interview, meet, and get to know athletes of all kind who were running in the 70s. I'm your host, Matthew Kleinowski. Today we're back with Ralph Serna in California to resume talking about his running career, the interactions with other people, and his career as a shoe designer. I want to talk, just form the background. You're an artist from early in age. What goes into shoe designing? You've mentioned that, hey, let me look at Reebok. Let me get in there. We know you eventually went to design school in Italy. Talk through that a bit, but what is it from that education that made a difference in you shoe designing? Anything? Did school help?
As far as getting into shoe design, at the time I was interested in doing that was really, say, 85, 86. I had left Sub 4 and I had gone back to manage a couple stores of John Loshorn's for runners. I had done a little bit of that in college in the evenings to make a few extra bucks, but now I was managing the Fountain Valley store in Southern California and the Mission Viejo store of John Loshorn's stores, his chain. I always knew and always around shoes, and I saw the quick evolution before Air and after Air, and then everything else since then. Like I said, my first pair of spikes were a pair of Wilsons that weren't really nice for $4, and I got into the Avantes for $9 and the Tokyos when I was 15. So I was always intrigued by them. And we didn't have a lot of money. I remember even as a young teenager, I had to wear my shoes till I wore a hole in them, and I'd put cardboard in them. Now, fast forward, I think that was maybe one of the driving forces that just interested me in the fact that I could design shoes and then I could get free shoes. And it was just that weird connection. Worked through Loshorn's and wore the shoes, saw the evolution of the shoes. And then when Angel Martinez recommended that I think about designing shoes, I was wondering I've never met anyone who designed shoes. How do you do this thing? There was no college courses for it at the time. This is like in 85, 86. So I'm figuring I've designed apparel. How do I design shoes? I would sketch things out like caricatures of shoes, not really meant to be serious. Funny things. We would put them in the Loshorn's newsletter. And John liked me doing those things, right? So it was funny, meant to be funny, and it was entertaining. But I was still learning how to draw shoes. Then the problem was I thought I should know how to do some technical things. And I would imagine, how do you do the bottom? You need a blueprint. How do you do a blueprint? In high school, I had taken drafting. So I was good at that. I actually got so good that in high school, you do all the drafting with the drafting table and the drafting arms and the triangles and all those and the templates back in the day. Then one day he says, okay, we're going to freehand. I'm going to give you this complex shape, like the plumbing elbow or something that has all these different shapes. And you got to freehand it and see what you can do 3D isometrically. And I was really good at it. As far as the drafting goes, sometimes my lines wouldn't be right because sometimes they have to be thicker and some have to be thin, some have to be dotted, some have to be dashed. And I learned that slowly. But when it got to the freehand, the perfect score you could get on a drawing was 1.0. That was perfect. Like cross country, the lower you get, the better you are. When we got to the 2 or 3 projects of freehanding, I got 0.5 and 0.8. And my friend, Brad Hudson, who I've known since I started running, was upset because he said there is no 0.5 and there is no 0.8.
This amplifier goes to 11.
Yeah, 1.0 is the best you can get. And so I kept those drawings. To this day, I still have them. But what that helped me with was now I could actually read blueprints for the most part, and I could create them more or less, and learning some specifics from the people that I would eventually work with. I knew the history of shoes, the evolution of shoes, what worked for me, what didn't work for me, and helping people buy shoes helped me get to know it better. It became like a second language as far as the features, the materials, what the foam is, what the rubber is, what the mesh is, and all those things. And then the technologies came out, knowing all those things, knowing how to draw, technical draws. I can draw well. I just didn't know how shoes were made. There was no school in the US to teach you that. That's what led me to Reebok. They were going to hire me as what was called a tech rep. A tech rep is a salesman's assistant. And so I had a territory if I got the job. I met the previous tech reps. One was Mike Finale. Mike Finale and I became good friends. I'd known Gary from racing against Gary, his brother, but I got to know Mike when he'd come into the store. You'd bring in point of purchase materials, brochures to give away free, maybe some kind of spiff program where you gave free t-shirts or something. And you'd make sure the Reebok stock is straight and in order, the right sizes. And that's what he did as a tech rep. I applied 3 times for a tech rep because Mike Finale told me, I'm leaving, I'm going to become a salesman. Most tech reps become salesmen. I'm leaving, apply. So I did that 3 times, and 3 times I got rejected, and 3 times I got to know the later tech rep, each one telling me, you should apply. I am applying. I'm not getting the job. You got the job. But it was super nice people. Finally, the 3rd one that I got rejected on, I asked him as I'm walking out, and I was interviewed by Jim Van Dyne. And Jim Van Dyne was a runner. I think he was an Aggie. So I think he was UC Davis possibly, but he was running with Angel Martinez. Jim Van Dyne was the Reebok boss of the tech reps. I finally asked him as I'm walking out, why am I being rejected? I know all these things. I know what I'm doing. He said, because we know you want to design. I don't want to have to come out here in 3 months if you get promoted to design. I understood that. So I walked away. 2 weeks later, he calls me and says, the guy we hired quit. After 2 weeks, the job is yours. I become a tech rep. 6 months later, I get interviewed to go back to Boston and speak with Steve Liggett, have an hour-long conversation, 15 minutes on the job, 45 minutes on running because he said he ran against me. As I'm walking out of that, he says, you're going to Korea, sell everything you own. That's when I got to Korea. Now I'm going to learn how shoes are made. And that was the final puzzle part that I needed to create my own footwear design school, call it that. That's what I did. Of course, a year later, Reebok offers me the job in design. I'm the 5th designer. I go there in Boston. They made it clear that you're going to be in Boston. So that's where the headquarters is. Go to Boston after a couple months in '88. I'm now moving to the design department. After a couple of months of that, he says, we want someone in our department who understands patterns really well for footwear. We're going to send you to Milan, Italy, and you're going to study there for 3 or 4 months. So that was not a hard decision to make, to go to Italy. It was a great place, and that's what I did.
You were there for Reebok. This is all athletic footwear. What was Milan principle? Was that wider than just athletic footwear?
Yes, those 3 or 4 months, there were 2 classrooms. One of them was for people who only spoke Italian. And that means there was 20 people and then 20 people in the other class. I was in the other class where they taught in English because I don't speak Italian. But there were people from Japan, from England, from everywhere in my class. It was pretty amazing. They mainly taught us proper footwear, dress footwear. Out of that 3 or 4 months, they'd have maybe 2 weeks of so-called athletic shoes. It was all about patterns. The actual function of the shoe didn't matter because it's a matter of how can you stitch the upper. They weren't talking about the bottom. They just needed you to understand the pattern of the upper. Because for the most part, it's going to be stitched onto a leather piece for your bottom and very little athletics. I got to learn all that. That's what really gave me a full 360 knowledge that I felt really good about because a lot of designers at the time weren't really technical. They're from apprenticeships, maybe from Europe, maybe not so much in the US because there really wasn't a program here. In the design group, I was the 5th designer. 2 were from England, 1 was from Spain. All did the apprentice program that you might imagine as a cobbler, more of a cobbler than today's design.
Yeah, being there from the beginning, let's talk some specific shoes and ones that people might have had and the technologies that came in and the pump. Tell us just a couple shoe stories of some of these kind of iconic shoes. that came
Yeah.
through then?
When I got there, the pump wasn't there yet, but it was in the pipeline because we had an advanced technologies group. I was not in that. They would research things. And for example, one of the cushioning systems that we used when I got there was Hytrel, and it was Hytrel tubes, like literally a plumbing tube, but very small. They'd make a little cassette and it would go into the heel of the shoe. And it was literally called the ERS system, for energy return system. Hytrel is actually the advanced group had an idea from the train coupling pads on trains, those big pads that all that weight smashes into two cars is Hytrel. Hytrel, good energy return, but it actually lasts really long. And imagine all this weight of two trains smashing into each other when they couple. That was the Hytrel. And then, so they'd give us the system, and then we would have to figure for running or for tennis or for whatever sport, the designers now would have to figure, how do I use this to the best advantage? Is it a diameter thing? Is it a numbers thing of how many tubes or width or softness? Because there was different durometers of how hard the plastic was. I learned all of that from our advanced concept group. So they were great guys. Then we got into Hexalite. Hexalite was actually the cushioning used by NASA for the space seats. It was amazing. It's basically a beehive. Honeycomb is one of the strongest natural structures there is. That's what this was based off of. But it also gave you some cushioning. It could give you a rebound. So we use Hexalite. Then the pump comes along. So they're working with it. Paul Litchfield is renowned worldwide for what he contributed to that program of the pump. We worked with him. He would come to us and say, here's the mechanisms. This is inflate. Here's deflate. Here's the bladder. It's like a big bladder. Here's one for basketball. The first one was a basketball shoe. We want you to put it, Ralph, into running. And then they gave me tennis. And then they gave me a few others. But the first two were running and tennis. And so then we, as the designers, again, took that technology and we had to figure the best place to put it. How do we change the bladder? The mechanism was going to stay the same, but the bladder shape and size and all that was going to be the designer and the developer's ideas. I did the very first running pump shoe, which is still being sold, called the dual pump. I designed that in 88, 89. We're designing a year ahead at the time. That shoe still being sold after all these years. Probably one of my most famous shoes was another pump shoe, was called the Court Victory, still being sold for tennis. They came to me in 89 and said, we want you to design the very first pump shoe for tennis. You're going to design it for Michael Chang. Michael Chang grew up in Orange County, 15 minutes away from where I grew up. So he was an Orange County guy. So we had to get it ready for the French Open. They also said, we're going to design the shoe for the masses, which means asphalt surfaces. But this first one for Michael Chang is for the clay courts of France, French Open. So we had to do a special bottom for him, which was self-cleaning. So every time he flexes, the clay would come out, more or less. So
we should all have those. Geez.
I did those for Michael Chang. And to me, one of the greatest things that I was really proud of is that I did another shoe called the Ventilator. And that's just when mechanical parts of shoes were coming into play, whether it was like the original carbon fiber shanks or the airbags or the Hexalite is a mechanical sort of. I decided the shoe I was going to design was supposed to give you support laterally, right? For anti-pronation. I came up with this little, it almost looked like a harmonica, but it went into the side of the shoe on the inside, your arch, and it supported you. So it prevented you from rolling inwards, and that's pronation, right? From the outside of your heel to the inside of your toe is pronation. And so we're trying to reduce that. That shoe is still being sold as well. There's like followers to these shoes that are interesting when I go on Instagram and see people following this stuff. And I'll post my original sketches, which are like whenever it was. But
people are still pronating all these years later.
Yeah,
but had it been addressed before?
It had, but now we're using mechanical devices instead of foam, which breaks down. If you remember the old Terra TC, which is one of the Nikes, the white with the black and red trimming, that was the first attempt of compression molded EVA. Like it's in a hot mold and it pops out.
Yeah.
The problem was it's called compression set. Compression set is, imagine this, if you get styrofoam and you get rubber, you can't press your finger into rubber because it's really hard. You can press your finger right through styrofoam, but it won't come back. You're going to leave an indentation. That's compression set. So that's what these new foams were for. Terrace TC, I think, was still a great shoe, but it was basically like running on styrofoam. If you remember, if you were behind people, you'd see their shoes totally rolling inwards, like almost to the point it hurt you to watch them. So the ventilator, so the one thing that I'm really proud of is this. I lived in Compton, grew up in Compton, and in 1967, I leave Compton. I'm 10 years old. Leave Compton, 67. 22 years later, basically, I'm designing now. All this time has gone by in 22 years. I'm designing these tennis shoes for Michael Chang for the French Open. He wears them, of course, and then they go to the masses and to sponsored athletes. Two of the other sponsored athletes are Venus and Serena Williams. Now they're wearing my shoe, the pump shoe, because they're sponsored by Reebok. Now, that's in 1990, because that's when the shoe got launched. Fast forward to 2015, another 25 years, a famous rapper by the name of Kendrick Lamar is going to be sponsored by Reebok, and he chooses my ventilator as his first signature with his name on it and everything else. And the proud thing is, all of us are from Compton. So yeah. I leave 22 years later, I designed this shoe and the ventilator, the Michael Chang and ventilator, Serena, Venus, and eventually Kendrick Lamar is wearing my shoe. And a guy from Compton did those shoes for people in Compton. So
now we just need an astronaut to come from there and take your shoes to some other planet or moon or something. Yeah, as far as it's already an unbreakable record. Let me ask you then about, just in general, the whole scope of females in athletics in terms of running. What was, let's just blitz, when you started running, was there girls track there? The West Coast tend to be a little bit more progressive in some things. Was girls athletics there? When did you encounter women's coaches? And when did shoes say women are different?
Yeah, there was no program in junior high school. That's 70 to 72, no program. Get to high school, at least in Orange County, it's very rare. Now, there are track clubs. And one of the most famous in Orange County is the Blue Angels. And who came from the Blue Angels? Mary Decker did. That's what there was for girls at the time. Then I get to high school. In 73, we have our very first CIF, California Interscholastic Federation, the governing body of all sports in California. The track finals prior to the state. It's a state qualifier. It's called the Masters. Is the first time they had girls in 1973. To that point, the girls would have to run on the boys' team, and that's what Ruth had to do. She did eventually run in the girls' division in 73, but they didn't let the girls go to state meet. There was no state meet in 73. It wasn't until 74, the second year in the Masters, that qualified them for an actual state meet. That was the beginning in California. So that's what all that was.
And did UCI have a women's sports?
No, there was nothing like that we had. Eventually later they would, but they didn't then.
Yeah. And then, okay, what about shoes? When you encounter females doing the same job as you as a designer, for example, 40 people in Italy, how many of those women?
Oh, yes, definitely. In Italy, and it was called Arcitoria. Arcitoria was for everyone. So yes, and maybe there were 25% women there. There was only one other American, and she was from New York. And I think she was definitely going to do fashion shoes. And that's where she ended up going. When I got to Reebok, they brought me back after that course. And I will say this, the course was probably harder than college because they took their shoes so seriously, and they should. Right. They would not give you a college diploma. They would not give it to you if you couldn't do certain things. And so they would not cut slack for anyone. So that's what was going on. I get back to Reebok. I was fifth designer. The sixth designer was straight out of college by the name of Garrett Parker. And later I would work with them elsewhere. But Garrett Parker came in first as an intern, then they hired him. And then the next person was Judy Ringel, and she was the first female designer at Reebok. And then from that point, there was 3 or 4 or 5 in right away. But Judy is famous because she did the very first Shaquille O'Neal pump shoe. That was her shoe. The one with the white and the black and the blue.
Yeah.
That was her shoe. And she sat right next to me. So we're always exchanging ideas, showing each other our drawings, our concepts. But yeah, she did a great job. And I think she's still there, actually. She may have left, but I know she was there the longest of anyone of our group.
Yeah. We're a long way from the 70s, but everybody will know the name of another guy that you worked the shoes for, somebody who runs the 100 and the 200, world record holder, Usain Bolt. What's the story of doing shoes for a sprinter?
Yeah, it'll be the same thing. How did I do a tennis shoe? Yeah, I've done a racket thing, but I don't really know how to play tennis. But you'll have so many people there that know a lot that you can learn from and get specifics. Biomechanists, I got to work with some great guys there. Like I mentioned, Paul Litchfield was one of them, and just other people that had so much knowledge. But doing different shoes, it almost didn't really matter because you just had to become a student of what the brief was. They give you a description. And then in fact, for women, we started trying to find how the foot's different and how the strike and the weight is different. From at least the research we did then, most women's heels are narrower. So we had to make a different last, the way the shoe was constructed, to be a little tighter on the heel. And because they do all these pressure plate tests as well. And according to the information then, they felt that women sometimes would put more pressure proportionately onto their forefoot. So we became more sensitive of things like that. So those are some of the specifics. It wasn't creating a whole new shoe at the time, but certainly there were some indicators of things that we might need to do to help female athletes as well.
Yeah, some of it's certainly proprietary and brand, but this seems things that are ripe for academic papers. I don't know, were there academic papers written? The physiology of running shoes for females seems like it would be an interesting thing.
Yeah, there wasn't really a lot. And remember, even especially, let's say, maybe even through the very early 90s. So I get there in 88, the first 4 years. It was a wild west because everyone was still really new to this new thing that was happening fast. And it was changing so quickly. Like I said, there was really no school for footwear design. No one even knew. How does a shoe get designed? Who does it? How does it get done? And then within 5 years, there's schools that are now giving, Art Center in Pasadena are now giving courses in this stuff. And I worked with some people that graduated from that later. But when I was there, 3 of the people were old school apprentice cobbler school of learning. One was the very first industrial designer, not footwear specific. His name was Dave Miller, and he did a lot of the very first basketball shoes for Reebok. Great stuff. Showed me so much. And then it was me, and I had somehow piecemealed my education for footwear together from my life, basically. And then after that, pretty much it just became industrial designers who were coming through, and eventually specifically footwear industrial designers.
Jeez, yeah. So did you go to Jamaica?
Yes. So Usain Bolt. I'm consulting now. So in 2008, I decide I'm going to consult. So I'm no longer in-house, working from home. And one day I get a phone call from an old marketing person who was in charge of tennis when I did the Michael Chang. She calls me up. She's now at Puma. And she says, hey, we have a program for you. You just need 3 shoes. Are you available? And of course I am. Mary Taylor is her name. And I said, of course, Mary. She said, I can't tell you the details. You got to sign an NDF. So I was like, okay, send it to me. She sends it. I sign it on a Monday, return it. She calls me back that afternoon and says, what are you doing Wednesday? It's nothing planned this week. Okay, you're going to design 3 shoes for Usain Bolt. We're going to fly you to Jamaica to sit poolside and just chat and just see what he likes, what he doesn't like. He's wearing Pumas, but we want to know something specific. We're going to send a developer. Normally you're paired as designer developers together as a pair. This developer is the guy that worked with me at Reebok, and he's the one that helped me with the ventilator and all my running shoes.
Oh my gosh.
So we know each other very well, and he was actually in our wedding. So very good friend. He's still in Boston, so I leave California. He leaves Boston. We meet in Jamaica. I don't get there till 11 at night. It's a fast trip. 11 at night, and then we meet with Usain the next morning, poolside, lunchtime for a few hours. Go back and forth. What do you like? What don't you like? What cars do you like? What clothing? What music? What colors do you like? Comes out that we're going to do 2 training flats, no spikes, training flats. The one pair to go with is denim jeans. So it's a that's great. That's right up my alley. It's right up my alley. So that's what we did. So for the next few months, we went back and forth. Eventually, I went with their team from Boston to Vietnam to work on the samples. And then we started getting all these samples. At some point, we create a sample that we're happy with. I sign off. I walk away as a consultant, and they can do anything they want to do with it. They make a few more changes, do whatever they want. But it was 2 training flats, and he actually liked kind of skate looks, kind of shoes. So it's that skater look as his casual shoe. So that's what we did. I was actually really happy because I collect track and field memorabilia. I have a big collection. I had gone through my collections and found duplicates of things of runners prior to Usain, even back to the 40s, that I had copies of. So I was able to give Usain, who I knew was a little bit of a historian himself, I was able to give him all these covers and articles and things of all the Jamaican runners, mainly sprinters, from previous for decades. So I gave him a half dozen of those, and he was quite happy with those.
Very cool. Green and yellow. Everybody can see a lot of your work. It's online. What's the name of the website people could head to? Oh, Instagram. Instagram. That's where to see.
So my Instagram is Soul Treads, at Soul Tread. And as the bottom of your shoe, the treads. And then I have ralphserna.com is my portfolio. You can see my entire portfolio.
Both shoes were green and yellow. They were the national.
We did plenty of colors, but we always had to have the national color. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Green, black, and yellow. Yeah.
Let's make sure we talk about Runners Reunited in a little bit more detail.
Yeah. Shirt I'm wearing is Runners Reunited. In 06, my wife and I are living in Santa Barbara. My parents called me up and said, hey, we found a bunch of these old 8mm films and photos in your old scrapbooks. What do you want? You want to do anything? And I said, okay, hold them. I'll come by. I pick them up, take them back to Santa Barbara. And now I'm like playing with editing videos and stuff. So basically, I'm able to transfer the 8mm film to digital. And I'm able to go through that. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to take maybe a couple months. 11 months later, I finally finished these things, right? And it's 5 hours worth, right? So I put them in 5 different DVDs at the time. I thought a lot of people have never seen these 8mm films that were basically hidden for decades. When's the last time you pull out a projector with a screen and you put that 3-minute reel in? That doesn't happen. I wanted to let people see themselves. Maybe hadn't, and maybe they didn't have anyone that videotaped them. And I was fortunate. My parents did a lot of that. So that was the very first, which was not called Runners Reunited, January of 07. I made a couple calls to some friends, and I was starting to gather email addresses at the time. People I hadn't seen in decades, literally 30 years. I happened to get a phone call from Dan Emfield. Dan Emfield happens to be doing the same thing. He's collecting contact information. So we said, hey, let's have a gathering. Let's share information. So in January of 07, had the first little reuniting group, and we had 24 people. Tom and Ruth were there. My old teammate John Koenig was there. Don Moses was there. Armando, all these rivals of mainly Orange County and close by. So that was great. We did that. I made some little like playing cards I cut out by hand with our photos on them. And just everyone brought stuff and talked about the good old days and had a good time. Didn't think anything about it. And that was it. That was 07. And there was an article that came out in 08 about my running collection. I'm in Santa Barbara still. And they put it in Runner's World with some photos. A guy, Dan Martinez, who ran at Oregon, a walk-on, saw it. He's a big track and field nut like me. And so He said, let's do that gathering. I heard about your gathering you did 2 years ago. Now we're in '09. I never met him. I said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So in '09 was my second one. That's when I named it Runners Reunited, RRU. All of a sudden, it went from 24 people to that '09 year. There was like 65. However, people somehow found out about it, even then, and started calling me. And all of a sudden, I have Mark Covert, who I knew, but I didn't know really well. Covert showed up. All the rivals that I had and guys ahead of me, Mark Jeanette, Curtis Beck, Rich Kimball, all these guys started showing up. I knew they're coming. And it was amazing. So like it went from 24 to say 65. A guy named Ralph Ganes got a hold of me. He was the very first California 2-mile champion in 1965. He ran against Ryan and Lindgren. So he's of that era. When they ran at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, Ralph was against him. He was like 15 years old and he ran 9:15 or something back then. That was amazing. So all these people started calling me. Pete Romero, who was a couple years after Ralph, won state champion, and then Ruben Chapins, who won state champion. So all of a sudden, we take these photos, and someone said, you should send them to Track and Field News. So in '09, I do that. Lo and behold, they print a picture of all the state 2-mile champions we had. And there was maybe 8 of them. And they printed it in their hard copy magazine, and then they posted it on the website. And then from there, it's gone crazy. It's taken a life of its own. And now the last 4 or 5, other than like 2021, the last 4 years, we've had probably 160 people every year. So it hasn't been under 130 for years. Nike with Nelson Ferris has been there a couple times. Jan Lester from ASICS has always been a supporter for 10 years from ASICS. We had Terry Drake send some stuff from Saucony. Even Vans has gotten involved and sent some stuff since I had designed there.
That's great. Yeah, it's a great model. There's been little projects. Most of them last 1 year or they're a one-off. And there were just some people were just trying to find some archival footage actually in the library at a little school I went to, and somebody came up with it. I said, go get them. We can do it. That's a great model, and it's very cool.
This July is going to be my 17th annual. 17 years. And we skipped a year and a half, but it's 17 years. And it's such a great feeling to see all of a sudden Steve Scott meeting Don Bowden for the first time. And Don Bowden took a 10-hour train ride to come down, and we offered to pay. He didn't want it. He just wanted to come down. But the only way he would come is if Steve Scott was going to be there. And so we have these amazing photos of Steve Scott with Don Bowden. And then we have Laszlo Tabori, who showed up before he passed away for 2 or 3 years. Third man in history. Don was the first American. Laszlo was the third man ever in history to be there. And the list just goes on and on. So now it's taken the life of Jackie Hansen, had the world's record in the marathon twice. Tom and Ruth Wysocki have virtually been there every single year. And that is great now because now many of them are coaches themselves and are bringing some of their young runners to meet the people. Len Miller was there before he passed for many years. So all these coaches also are there. Bob Larson is there almost every year. Last Meb Keflezgi and Ron Tabb came out all the way out to be there. And so it's just like Craig Virgin has been there a few times. So it just goes on and on. And it's amazing just to sit there. And I've talked to some of the people from Track and Field News or wherever, newspapers, and just say, if you're into high school track, you have to come here because within 10 feet, you can see all those people I just named. Where else can you do that? One guy that I'm trying to get, which has been hard because his birthday always seems to be around my gathering, is Rod Dixon. And Rod Dixon knows everyone that's come to my gathering, and he wants to come. He just says it's that time is
bad timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Maybe Michael Johnson needs to broadcast this. So highlights of this at the Grand Slam, and ESPN needs to cover it. Yeah, that's just brilliant. That's fantastic. You're an eclectic person with this great career of supreme performance from an early age and a very interesting family and professional story, and your love of the sport and passion for it is great to see. What are those two green rabbits doing there behind your shoulder? I'm gonna ask you.
My wife's laughing. She's here. It's actually silvac, which is it's an English pottery with that kind of green
Yeah.
color.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. We have all kinds of collections. Yeah. So then we're doing our ceramics. That led into ceramics. And 4 years ago, my wife decided she wanted to do something together. So she found a great ceramics studio, and we became students once a week. And then after a year or so, I became what's called a member, which means I can go there as much as I want at any time and have keys to the place. As I'm doing this, she says, you should use your shoe designs somehow. And so I kind of hand build everything or over a plaster mold, right? I'm not on the wheel very much at all. But I imprint the clay with various brands that I've been with. So that's the one thing. And then I use my NC2A rings to also imprint into the clay. So I basically tell people the clay is the least important part of my ceramic table setting. I'm basically incorporating my running history, which is decades and decades, and the ring, 1975, right? So that's how long, almost 50 years. Then my shoes, 30 plus years. And then my art background, and now my ceramics background. And this is like a piece. And you can see all those outsoles and all those things.
Yeah.
And that's just like a fruit plate. Call it a fruit plate. I make booklets for these things. And these booklets will tell you every single shoe that's on your plate. It'll tell you when my NC2 ring, what year that was from. So it's running, my design, my art, and ceramics all thrown into one. It tells you every shoe in your piece, and you'll see different phases of your piece getting done. So everyone comes with a little booklet like that. An example, this is the booklet. And so as you go into it, it'll tell you the shoes, the backstory, all the shoes. There's Kendrick Lamar wearing my ventilator. This is the cover of a magazine with my ventilator on it. Then it starts taking you through like the rings. It actually tells you the results of that NC2A race. And then eventually it'll take you through your piece being made. This is like your piece, and here's the piece. It's like a platter.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So that's what it is. And you can see my ring imprint in the center there. This is the ventilator. This is only my ventilator outsole on this one. Sometimes I mix and match outsoles, and sometimes I just do one outsole. This is the Kendrick Lamar plate. But I'm doing that, and then just by chance, a magazine in Australia had done an article on my shoes, my Kendrick Lamar shoe in 10 years ago. I told them what I'm doing now, and they said, perfect. They said, we're doing an issue about artists who use shoes as inspiration for their art. And so they said, send us photos of your table setting. So that's what I did. And then in the magazine, they just went ahead and put a page of my stuff. Hang on a second. I have it right here. So this is called Sneaker Freaker.
Yeah.
Of course, it's the Bible of the sneakerheads. And that's my page of some of my settings. And it tells a story. I'll send you the photos of it later. But
Just down the street from me is the Bata Shoe Museum. So
of course. Yeah, world famous.
I'll go have a word with them and just see if they want to get in touch with you. Maybe there could be some interest in them talking with you and coordinating something to talking with you.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, because actually one time my wife, she's English, so we go back to England. And so when we go back, we always like to go to Barcelona, to Spain for a little bit. We love Barcelona. It's so close by. So we jump over there. And so one time we're looking through some Gaudi stuff, his cathedral and his apartments and all the different things. They have a little like souvenir shop at the end of the tour. So we're going through their tour and they have books. So I happened to see a book and they said, oh, they have a shoe book. They have a shoe book. Open it up. My shoes are in there. My running pump shoe and my Michael Chang tennis pump shoe that Venus and Serena wore. It's not with them in it, but just the shoes. And like my shoes got 2 pages each. My running pump, turn the page, my tennis Michael Chang shoe. And Gaudi's souvenir shop in Barcelona. So how weird is that?
Yeah, you've got a lot of unique things in your experience walking in and finding your work in somebody else's book. That's another good one. Yeah, it's a great long story. Obviously, your story's not over. You're still active, creative, and doing everything else. What about running?
I really haven't run since I stopped marathoning. My last official race is I'm at Reebok, right? So I'm freshly back from Korea, 88, 4th of July. I think I maybe moved back in May. 4th of July of 88. There's a road race, and I'm living south of Boston in a little town, great little town called Hingham. And so in Hingham, there's a 4th of July race, as you could imagine. It's a point to point, and basically they bus us out, and we finish literally like around the block from where I live. So this is perfect, right? It doesn't get better than this. But I'm up and down. I tried running in Korea for a year, and it just wasn't working. I have to stop every week. So I stopped, and then I get to Boston. Thought, okay, 4th of July race. I've been okay for a month. Let's see if I can at least finish the race. There's some people from Reebok, other people, marketing, salespeople are going to run it. That's great. And we get along well. We do the race. I finished the race and kind of limped to the finish line, and it didn't feel good. And I see some of the people from Reebok, and it's, how did you do? And they said, oh, I did this, and this is how fast I ran. I said, wait a second. I said, I don't remember you passing me, because they ran faster than I did. And they weren't really runners. And I said, I don't remember you passing me. And they said, don't know. And I said, what was your first mile? And they told me, and I realized they were always ahead of me. And it's, you know what? I think my running career is over.
That's the signal.
Yes. I said, but forget it. It's over. And I told them that story, and they loved the story. They loved the story. But then it was great, because then I did all this stuff for Reebok, and I'm still in tune with all the running community, and so I've never really left it. Whether it was working with Wishnia on the new shoes, he knew me as a marathoner with a mohawk. Now he knows me as a shoe designer, and it was just great I didn't even leave the table. Basically, I'm just kind of working with everyone still. So that was nice. It was just fun to all those contacts. Angel Martinez, the guy who was a NCAA All-American in '76 with me. He recommended I get into footwear. Now here he's like the CEO eventually. Reebok owned Ales. If you remember that brand, they made Angel the CEO of Ales. And so here's the guy I ran against, and now he's the CEO. I'm the designer. And it's just like this strange world where sometimes it helps to know people. And it's not going to get you the job, but it'll get you the interview. Yeah. And most of them would say the same thing. It's like, because of your background, it could be any sports. It could be music. It could be you're in the band, whatever it is. That you have dedication, you work hard. And that's what we need. And we can teach you the rest, but a lot of it, because you saw the shoes. And even back then, I was becoming a collector and a sort of historian, or had all this memorabilia. So people started coming to me. Kevin Ryan was working for New Balance, if you remember Kevin Ryan. Yeah. So one day I meet him for the first time. He comes up to me. The first time we met, he goes, I know about you, and I know about your shoe collection. I know about your track and field news collection. And we just hit it off. That it became that as well. So all these things started beginning or continued. So
makes sense. It's been great to spend all this time with you. We're going to have several episodes of this. I think people are going to love it. We got well out of the decade and just fascinating stuff. Your contributions to the sport just seem like falling off a log for you, and you just moved smoothly through them and enjoyed the whole ride. Do you know Jim Mosier?
Oh, of course. Yeah, Jim. Yeah, he actually worked at Reebok. He worked at Reebok. Yeah. And when I was at Sub 4, and then eventually I started designing years later. And so he stayed in contact all the time. He comes to the gathering quite a lot. Yeah, Jim Mosier is a great friend.
Because he's another shoe dog kind of guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. He was with Reebok before I was. Yeah, he's just a great guy. So, yeah, our circles are always intertwined. And he ran a little bit before me. He went to UCLA. I think he graduated there like in maybe 69 or early 70s before I even almost started running. But we became good friends at Sub 4. And I think he ran on the Sub 4 track club, as most of the people could. So
yeah, he had a pretty good career with the military team.
Yes. Yeah. Because he's a good friend with Phil Camp. Phil Camp.
Oh, yeah.
Also, big military, done some great stuff. And he ran faster marathons than I did. And he was doing them before me. He was running like
Yeah.
2:13s. And he was back in the day when it was like Doug Schmink and Mark Covert when Jackie Hansen was setting these world records. That was their era. But I always remember Jim Mosier. If Jim Ryan had a twin, that would be Jim Mosier.
Oh, really? Yeah, he sent me some old early pictures.
Yeah, he's that tall guy, statuesque kind of guy. Man, you're built for running. Your legs are like taller than I am.
Yeah. One thing that's been fun is I talked to Jerry Lindgren. I did a couple interviews with him. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's funny. He's just great.
I've never spoken to him, but a couple of my friends went to Hawaii, and I don't know how they did it, but they met him, whether it was
I
arranged
think
or
Gary
planned.
Finelli did because Gary was out there.
Okay, this is Colin McConnell, and
Okay.
he was one of my rivals in high school and Long Beach State later when I was at Irvine. He ended up giving Jerry Lindgren one of my running shirts. That's what this is. So it's built off the old Peachy, and
Oh,
I have
yeah.
different colors of it, but it's all of us instead of the normal baseball, football, tennis.
Yeah.
It's just all of us. And these races never existed. It was photoshopped this together, and maybe it could be 15 years apart, but he got a shirt, and so he's wearing my shirt. And he sent some message, a little video clip that they got him to say.
Thanks
That's
for
awesome.
sharing. Oh, yeah. I'll send him a message and tell him I interviewed you, the guy
Yeah.
that made the shirt for him. Fascinating. Really fascinating stuff. Yeah.
I just heard these stories about him and stuff, and he just seems really interesting. And just like the
Yeah.
things that he
Really
did,
cool.
it was like light years ahead of he and Ryan. It baffles me. One quick thing I'll tell you is that I still got to put it all together. Videographer mind is that I have Dan Martinez who does this thing with me. He always videotapes. And so since 2009, whenever new people come in, and that includes Don Bowden, Steve Scott, Ron LaRue. Francie's never been, but Ron LaRue's come before he passed away. And on Lazo Tabori, Ruth, Tom, everyone. We always interview him. And Dan has his questions, but 3 key questions asked by every single person that comes to my event since 2009. 3 questions.
Wow.
What was the greatest race you ever ran in high school? Based on high school, right?
Yeah.
Second thing, what did you learn from running that you use today in life or in life that you've used later? And 3, if you could go back and change anything in high school track, what would you change for yourself?
Yeah.
And the question, when you ask them, especially what was your greatest race? Example, Mark Schilling, who had the California record 4:05 for 36 years. His answer to that question is stuck with me. I'm thinking, okay, he's going to say state meet, 36 years, 4:05, never been broken. No, his answer was a 13:20 I ran when I was 15 years old that made me believe I could be a contender. This is exactly what I want. This is exactly what I want. But I have reams and reams of all that said. So when I finish it up, you'll see it as well. But I'm still working on getting all that.
Give me one more then. Just answer question number 2 for you, Ralph Serna. What'd you learn from high school track that informed your life?
For me, probably the greatest thing was just sacrifice, dedication, and being able to have a vision for months or even years to achieve something and be able to stick with it. And all those things seem to work in life as well. All those things. And I've used a cross-country team so many times as a learning process for my design teams. It's like we're only as strong as that 4th or 5th person who's almost more important than the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd guy. And we work that way. And I've always learned those things from running, that it's not always just about you. It's about people supporting you. And after a few years, like I said, I've been in championships that the prelims, I wouldn't have made it to the finals if it wasn't for my team. And so those things that you learn, is all that dedication and sacrifice, it's going to pay off. And you can say that about anything.
Yeah.
Been fortunate.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So it's really fun talking to you. And thanks for all your time, Ralph.
Oh, Matthew, it's been awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Good talking to you.
Thanks.
All right.
Cheers.
Take
Bye.
care.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed another episode. Do you have someone you'd like to hear interviewed on the podcast? You can leave a comment on the YouTube channel or on the website running70s.com. That's running70s.com. Let me know what you think of the episodes and anyone, including yourself, you'd like to hear interviewed. I hope you enjoyed another episode of Running in the 70s. Voices, stories, and memories of athletes who were running in the 70s. Until next time, wherever you are, keep looking forward and don't forget to look back.